Calm down.
Yeah,
Relax.
I don't know why. Okay, good evening, everyone. So before we begin, let me just check our audio and video. Yeah, I wish there was a simpler way to do this now. Okay, just a moment. I think someone should respond.
Mhm.
Okay, where are these guys? Um, just a minute. Hi. Hi, Shubham. Are you audible? Okay, we are audible. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so May is the month of mental health awareness along with a lot of other conditions. So I'm Nikhil at Crohn's and Colitis Squad, and today we have with us Tanya from Championing Youth Minds. And before I let Tanya introduce herself, I just want to say a few things about her. So basically, when I saw her blog, and I think it was 2 months back, and at that time she was undiagnosed, right, Tanya? You were undiagnosed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and but she was still writing very ferociously about disability accommodations and the struggle she was going through. So it was very new for me to see a person who's still undiagnosed speaking up so much. So that's how I got in touch with her, and we had this idea to come up with a series of talks on chronic illness and mental health. And yeah, without further ado, Tanya, would you like to say something about yourself and championing youth minds?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So yeah, it's been quite interesting. So obviously Nicole reached out to me. I think it was like at the start of the year.
Yeah.
At that point I was undiagnosed, but now I'm diagnosed. I have fibromyalgia and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So these are chronic pain, chronic fatigue, kind of pain disorders. And yeah, as you can tell from my accent, I'm from the UK. And I've also started a charity called Championing Youth Minds. And it's basically about raising mental health awareness, reducing stigma, and yeah, really trying to help people kind of through their mental health struggles.
So yeah, I think like we should begin. So yeah, like what
Mhm.
prompted you to start this? Like that's the first question I want to ask you. Like
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. So for me, I feel like I've lived a life where I'm constantly trying to explain to people my situation, why I feel the way I do, why I, act the way I do, the adjustments I need, and things like that. And it just got to a point where I was just so fed up. And I was like, firstly with the blogging, I was like, I'd rather write it out and whoever wants to read it can read it. Um, and then they don't have to ask me, I don't have to talk to them directly about it. And then in terms of championing youth minds, it's like everyone around me is just like struggling. And I want to help everyone, but no one's going to listen to me. So if I make a charity, people might
yeah,
listen.
yeah, yeah.
That's the honest truth.
Yeah. So I think yeah. So like how we planned. So this idea of a chronic illness. So like your thoughts on that. Like just to begin.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the most obvious thing, which is unfortunately people don't understand, is that the word chronic means lifelong. So someone who has a chronic illness isn't going to get better. They're going to have it forever. And I think people don't realize that things like diabetes are chronic illnesses.
Yeah, yeah,
There's so many different chronic illnesses. We just don't term them as chronic illnesses.
yeah.
And yeah, they're more common than you think. And just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I think like mostly, yeah, I think especially in India here, or I don't know other parts of the, but especially India, people don't want to go to doctors. So, and like
Uh-huh.
illness is seen as temporary. Like you get ill, you go to the doctor, or you like stay at home, have something, and then you like get well, and like it's for a certain period of time. But even though like the number of people living with chronic illnesses is so much, I don't know, it feels like people have never met anyone with a chronic illness. Like when you first tell them
Mhm.
that you have a chronic illness, it's like, okay, we haven't heard about it, or like yeah, that word, the chronic, it's like simple English, but still like people don't get it that it's a lifetime thing. And yeah, I think uh, that disconnect is there even when there are so many people living with these conditions. I don't know like how, I still wonder like how is it possible that nobody has ever met someone with a con. And you are right, like people with diabetes, like type 1 diabetes, like even type 2 diabetes, right? Everybody has to keep control of the sugar, and even like lifestyle disease like hypertension or something, like these are chronic, but still the
Mhm.
idea of a chronic illness is like very much, like absent. But I want to ask you one thing, like when you were undiagnosed, right, you didn't know whether it was a chronic thing or not, and like how did people respond then versus like how do people respond now?
I mean, to be honest, even when I was undiagnosed, I knew it was chronic
Okay.
because the options, the options were either it's going to be something
Hmm.
like rheumatoid arthritis, or it's going to be something which doesn't come off in blood tests. So that's like fibromyalgia and stuff. And I mean, I had had it for like 5, 6 years. So to me, that's chronic. And like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
painkillers weren't really working. So I kind of always knew it was going to be chronic. But now having a diagnosis and having a name to it, I think people they can kind of connect chronic and the condition together. But I mean, I feel like people still don't understand. I have people asking me like, "Oh, are you in pain today?" And I'm like, "I'm always in pain."
Yeah.
Um, it
Uh,
just varies.
do you think
Yeah,
like this idea of a chronic illness is uncomfortable to people, like just to accept that, like that the person sitting in front of you is like constantly in pain? Do you think like it's difficult for people, like it makes them uncomfortable somehow?
yeah. I think people are uncomfortable with really thinking more, like going the step further. So if I said to you, I have a chronic illness, you might understand, okay, she has a chronic illness, but then do you step further and think, okay, what does this mean for her? What does this mean for her everyday life? I think people have this lack of kind of, I think they're just disconnected from the
Hmm.
concept of it because we don't really hear it. When we think of someone who has a disability, we think of it like they're going to be in a
Yeah.
wheelchair. And also, I think, when someone breaks their leg or someone breaks their arm, firstly, you can see it. And secondly, it heals, right?
Yeah.
So I think people are just uncomfortable with the concept of you're going to
Like
have to live with it
somebody
forever.
could be in pain all the time. Like I think like I don't know, on a subconscious, maybe like if I met a person and like if they told me that they are in pain all the time, and like let's say like obviously I'm a chronic illness, so I know, but let's say like they are screaming, okay, in pain and constantly, and I know that I can do nothing to like lessen their pain. So then maybe I think I might be uncomfortable very like at like understanding and trying to understand it. So I think like on some level maybe just people are scared. I don't know like if it's true or not, but I think like maybe it's uncomfortable to them because they don't understand it, they don't know what to do. I think they don't know how to respond to it, or they don't know like what to offer to the like what to offer to, like what to say to a chronically ill person, or like how to interact with them. I think that's what we are trying to explore here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's two things. One thing is that if I'm sitting here on like I'm on call here and I'm smiling, people think, how is she smiling when she's in pain? So
Yeah.
it's that automatic like she's not screaming in pain, so she can't be in
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that um I think like family and friends get really frustrated
Mm.
because if anyone's going through a hard time, you want to be there and you want to offer solutions. And with the thing is with chronic illness, like no one can kind of sort that out for you. And I think it gets to a point where loved ones get so frustrated that they just kind of disconnect from it
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, yeah, like when it comes to family and friends, I think like there's that I think first, like you said, frustration, like they can't do anything. And but like for the general population, like you said, I think the concept of like an invisible disability comes naturally with like most chronic illnesses, because like
Mm,
they are for life. So like we adapt to it and suddenly it becomes normal for us. But like when we pretend to be normal, the people in front of us, they think that we are actually normal, when in fact
yeah,
we are just pretending to be normal, because that's the way to live with a chronic illness. You can't live any other way with a chronic illness. You can't always be sick, and you can't always like feel all that sickness and feel all that pain. Otherwise, it would be hellish to live like that, right? Like at some
yeah.
point we adapt to it, like we get accustomed to it, and like we have treatments and everything to help us like gain a certain quality of life. So like the concept of like invisibility or invisible disabilities, I think that comes naturally with a chronic illness. Yeah.
Mhm.
So like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think,
yeah,
yeah.
please go on.
So, I mean, I feel like people don't understand that, like, there are symptoms which you don't have to see. And like you said, like we get used to it because it's our daily life. And like if we want to live our life, we have to just function. Like I'm sorry, like if I've been dealing with pain for like years, I'm not gonna just stay in bed and do nothing.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of like they just, I don't know, I think it's just like if the person can deal with it, then it's not a problem. But we have no option but to deal with it.
Yeah, maybe that's an interesting point. Yeah. Maybe people think like if, yeah, maybe like if there's no sign of it on their face, then maybe they are really fine, or maybe it's their own problem or something like that. Yeah, yeah. But then, like, let's say that is the case, okay? Like, let's say that people make an assumption that, okay, like, since they are accustomed to it, it's a daily life, so, like, we shouldn't worry about it, or, like, it's okay to, like, just assume that they
Mm.
are fine. Like, like, obviously that's wrong, right? So, like, why
Yeah.
do you think, like, that's wrong? Like,
I mean, other than the basic fact, it's wrong to
yeah,
assume.
it's wrong, but you want to tell people why it's wrong, right?
um, you don't know what someone's going through mentally. It's so hard dealing with pain. Like, this might sound a bit horrible, but like some people can't even bear like a headache, like a
Yeah.
very rare headache. Like, like you see like some people be like, oh my God, like it's so, so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like then conceptualize like it being at a high level. Like it hinders in your daily life. Like you can't do certain things because your pain's that bad or your fatigue's that bad or your symptoms just come in the way. And it's quite naive to think that that doesn't affect someone mentally. And, there's so many things you question about yourself, your future, all of the things you thought you had planned out kind of just
Yeah.
washes away and you feel like you just have to like your future feels unpredictable because your health is unpredictable. So like you don't know what's going on inside that person's mind. And until you've stepped in the shoes of someone who has a chronic illness, which means having to have the chronic illness itself, you have no idea what it is like. The most you can do is listen and don't assume, but it's completely different when you actually have it.
And also I think like you said, na, like everything that we have planned, that it all gets like washed away, and we have to replan everything, rethink. And I think we spend a lot of our time just preparing ourselves for like public life. Like
Mhm,
we
yeah.
spend a lot of our time like just trying to present ourselves in front of people like in a certain way, so that because we also have life goals to achieve, we also like have to do jobs, and like we have to survive, like, so we also have to do everything that a normal person has to do, and we spend a lot of time just being like making sure that we are able to function in that part of our life, and all the
Yeah.
preparation and all the pain that we go through to ensure that is like totally hidden from the world. So
Hmm.
it's like completely invisible. And I think like in some sense it's like if I had to explain it to some person, so I think maybe it's like depression, right? There are people like with depression, but they function like they go to their jobs and do everything, and people say right that we didn't know he was going through something like that.
Hmm.
So apart from if you're seeing a person in front of you, you don't know how that person is in like his private life or like what they are going through. And I think it's the same with chronic illness. like like it's people don't get really get a chance to see, you know, how much like what's going on when we are not in front of them. And I
Hmm.
think that's like that is why it's called an invisible, like not just because I think it's not visible physically, but also like you don't see like how it affects them really. Like people can't, let's say if you have a visible disability, then everybody at your work or like whenever you go to friends and family, everybody can see like that it affects you. But when you are with a condition like a chronically uh, ill person, then yeah, I think people can't see like when you are back at home, you're not alone in your room, what are you doing? You are, you
Yeah.
know, like I like crashed down, like totally crashed down whenever I finish something. But yeah, people can't see that. So I think that
Yeah.
is also a big like invisible factor that, you know, creates that disconnect.
I mean, to be honest, like a lot of people, I'd say a very large percentage of people who have chronic illnesses also suffer from mental health challenges. So, like for fibromyalgia, a symptom of fibromyalgia is depression, anxiety,
Yeah, yeah,
but you can also get it from dealing with it. So, I mean, it's such a big overlap. And, like you said, kind of just no one, no one, I mean, like I'm sitting here right now. Anyone watching this doesn't know what part of my body's hurting.
yeah,
But do you know what I mean? It's just like it affects every single aspect of your life, your friendships, your relationships, your family life, school life. I remember thinking like, how am I going to do an office job if I struggle to sit down for
yeah.
like a long time? So it's literally like embedded in everything you do.
Yeah, and like you said, like it affects everything. And then I think, like we say, right, 1 week we are good and we are able to do everything that we do in our public life. The second week we are not good, and suddenly, like, you know, our activity drops, and then people get confused. Like the person was good of like, you know, last week, and now what suddenly happened. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
that creates, maybe that also creates a lot of confusion for them to understand like what's happening with them. And but yeah, like I think uh, after a while, yeah, this all, like you said, like it's mental. Almost all chronic illnesses come with this depression, and after a certain period of time, it all becomes like a
Yeah.
mental challenge because you get accustomed to the physical symptoms. But like to
Hmm.
put all that energy to prepare yourself, you know, for to present yourself in front of people, and then that takes a lot of like, you know, mental energy, like to just prepare yourself,
Yeah.
you know. And and like naturally dealing with such a hard thing for like a long period of time, and for you were undiagnosed for a long period of time, I think that itself is like enough to cause, you know, like depression and anxiety issues. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I think this like for chronically ill people, after a period of time, it all becomes like a big mental struggle. Like physical struggles are there, but like mainly majorly when like we are flaring up or when we are having major symptoms, because when you're having minor symptoms, like we get used to it, right? We are okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
But then most of the time, the mental struggles are like always there every day. You have to like tell yourself to, you know, wake up even though you are tired. You have to brush, you have to shower, you have to do everything that you're supposed to do to like live a normal life. And I think like every day those mental health challenges, like you have to overcome, and you have to do it again and again. And yeah, when you are doing it for a long period of time, that gives an impression to the people that okay, you are okay. And when you suddenly break down, it's like what happened to that person.
Yeah, I think, one thing I always say to people is life and the world is not going to stop for my illness
Yeah.
and for my symptoms. And the thing is like, for example, if you break your leg or if you have like a fever, you can take a period of time off of work, off of
Mm.
school, off of, you can just disconnect for a time because you know you're going to get better and then you can go back into it. But when you know nothing's going to change, you have to deal with it forever. It's like you don't have a break. It's a 24/7 job. It's a job you never signed up
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the application
You
you
don't
wish
get a
you were
salary
rejected
also.
for. I know. I know that's the thing. It's like it's a full-time job because you have to deal with so much. And the thing is like people can be like, oh, she was fine the other day, he was fine the other day, what's happened now? Um, the thing is, most of the time, we don't know what's going on either. We feel a symptom, but we don't know what's going on in our bodies.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're trying to work it out as well, but like doctors don't know, I don't know. Um, there's so many things which go into it. And honestly, I feel like, yeah, no one understands until you have it.
Yeah, like that uncertainty, I think, yeah, like you said, like nobody knows what's going inside, and even we don't know like what's happening because like every day is
No.
different. Like some days better,
Wait.
some days worse, and like this without any reason it will get worse, or like without any reason it will
Mhm,
get better. So like even we are confused, and we are obviously always trying to figure out like how to be like at our best every day so that we can accomplish more and more because obviously like
mhm,
compared to a normal person, we have to put in more effort to accomplish that same amount of thing or like to achieve a certain goal. So like we are always trying to be at our best, but then this thing is so unpredictable that we don't know. Like, okay, I have a plan for a 1 week, and then next week it doesn't work. Next week my body is functioning totally like differently. So
mhm.
yeah, I think that is also that also affects our mental because like it leads to frustration like
Yeah.
what the hell is happening here. Like why can't it just stay the same way? Okay, I have to suffer this, but like let it be the same suffering now. Why do you have to
Yeah.
change it from week to week?
Yeah. I think like for me, it's like my symptoms have progressively gotten worse over the years. So there's kind of this, like it's unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to feel each day. So it's like there's always that question, what's going to happen next? You have to like prepare
Yeah.
yourself. And it's not easy. Like, you know, I don't know, I could feel fine today and book like a whole holiday or like a day trip. And then the day comes and I'm like, I feel so bad. I
Yeah.
can't, but you can't cancel. Um, yeah, I think it's literally a guessing game. We are playing the biggest guessing game.
Yeah. And like sometimes it happens that you're in the middle of a situation. Like you're in the middle of a situation,
Mhm.
suddenly it strikes. And now you have to somehow like go through it. Like even though it's hurting,
Uh-huh.
even though it's difficult, and it takes a lot of like like sometimes I feel like I'll just faint. Like it becomes so hard to deal
Mhm.
with it. Sometimes like yeah, when that is over, I feel like I just crash. Like I feel like I
Mhm.
can't do anything anymore. Like I just like it's like war, like being at war every day with your body. Like
Uh-huh.
every day you are trying to outsmart it. Every day you are trying to
Yeah.
get ahead of it.
Yeah. I mean, I always say like I just wanna sleep because sleep is the closest thing to like just switching off. But I mean, if it was up to me, I would like detach myself
Yeah,
and have no responsibilities or whatsoever. But it's just like there's just no break.
yeah,
That's the most exhausting thing. And I think people don't understand because, like, we're all stressed about, I mean, everyone has like millions of stresses in their life, like education, career, family, money, things like that. We also have all of that. So we understand, but we're literally like carrying ourselves
yeah,
every single day. And it's not that it's a set thing every single day, it changes throughout the day.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, sometimes we don't even sleep. That's how
yeah,
bad
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
So it's
And
like we literally have no
yeah,
escape.
even the fatigue is like different for us. Like even sleep won't like some days
It's
like
not,
if sleep is not enough. Like even sleep
it's
like it
not.
feels like no, even sleep feels like a job sometimes to me. Like just sleep and then wake up feeling tired. You slept feeling tired. Like what happened? Like 7 8 hours. Like what happened? Like why don't I feel like refreshed? Like I wake up tired. I sleep tired. So yeah, even sleep and fatigue are like very different for us, and I think yeah, just like there's this huge, like gap between these experiences, even like similar sounding experiences, even the
Hmm.
financial struggles, or like constantly, thinking about your medications, thinking about your like medical supplies. That is also like a like you are almost running an organization. I feel like.
For yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's accounts department. There's like inventory. There's like supply chain and everything. Like you have to take care of everything. So it's almost like running an organization like that's centered around your body and like your life. Yeah.
I love that analogy. Honestly, that's the best thing I've had. Because it's so true. Because it's like, yeah, you have like a financial department, you have a social department, you have like your own emotional, mental well-being
Yeah, yeah.
department. It's
You
just
have a
like,
PR
I mean,
department.
yeah, exactly. And then it's just like you can't run away from it. It's like a
Yeah,
job you can't quit.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, yeah, not everyone has the same experience. The thing is with these conditions, it's like you can say a broad symptom like pain or like fatigue. It feels different for every single person. And I think that's what gets confusing because you don't know if you're feeling that symptom or you're just overreacting or something like that. You get into this cycle where you normalize your experiences because you have to, and then you get confused at where's where's other people's normal and where's like a
yeah,
symptom. Because
yeah,
like I mean for me like I don't even remember what it's like to not be in pain.
yeah,
So it's like for me, it's like I automatically just assume people are like fine with dealing with pain or they are in pain. And then it's like you have to kind of like take a step back and think, that's that's not me now.
yeah,
Like you have to think back. But I mean, I can't remember, honestly, like I can't
yeah,
remember.
yeah. Even with me, like I've been sleeping like almost like half upright since my ostomy, and then like whenever I lie flat, like I get anxiety. Like I get severe anxiety. Like I can't lie flat. I'm like I don't know. My body feels like it's in some danger or like some situation, and then I get
Mhm,
very anxious. So yeah, like yeah, I've almost forgotten like what it was like to not feel all these things. Like it has become
mhm,
so normal that like yeah, like often I like tell people that I've forgotten who I was. Like this like now me is like very completely different from who I was. And I think going through that chronic illness experience also like it reprograms your body and your mind, like
mhm.
how to behave and how to think. And yeah, I think it even changes our perception of people, like
Oh
like
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
how we perceive other people. Like everything is drastically changed. And yeah, like I totally have forgotten what, like just like 3 days back I was like there was a sun and weather was very good, and I was just like remembering that like like when I was a kid, like the sunny weather, and then there would be a warm bed and I would like sleep like us. Like I can't do all that right now. Like how did it feel like I want to feel that
Mhm.
once more. Like I've forgotten how it felt like.
Yeah, I think it completely changes a person. I mean, I see it as it changed me for the better because I'm not going to sit here and hate myself for who I am now,
Yeah,
realistically. I mean, like you said, firstly, it changes how you see yourself. You're so much more in tune with your body. So, like when people say do mindfulness and sit there and feel every part of your body, you're doing that on a daily basis anyway. So it's like, what am I going to do with mindful meditation when my life is just
yeah.
long-term mindful,
Yeah,
mindful
we are
feeling
we
my
are tracking
body?
ourselves each moment. So like we are already in the present.
Yeah. And then the other thing is it changes how we view other people.
Yeah,
So I'm not gonna lie, like when I'm quicker to kind of feel like people are being inconsiderate or
yeah,
people are being
yeah,
unappreciative
yeah,
because for us it's like we appreciate what we have even though realistically
yeah,
not like we have like the best health. Um and also when people are being inconsiderate to you. So like when people are kind of dismissing your symptoms, your
yeah,
experiences, and even not trying to understand. But then also it changes the way we understand other people's experiences. So like if someone's been assaulted or something, we have that empathy and that
yeah,
compassion,
yeah,
which is like it only comes through lived experience. But
yeah,
then there's also it changes your priorities.
Yeah.
So like for me, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm gonna get best paying job. I'm gonna become a lawyer. I'm just gonna be like bathing in like money, like just me and money. And
Yeah.
I was like, and then obviously if I have money, I'll get married, I'll have kids,
Yeah.
whatever, whatever. But my goal was money.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't want to do law. That's not going to make me happy. It's all about what's going to make me happy. And I will settle for less money to be happy. Because you start to value time more. Like
Mm.
you don't know when your symptoms are going to change. You don't know how your lifestyle is going to have to change. Um, I can do one thing today, but can I do it tomorrow? Um, but sometimes it's quite hard because not everyone thinks the same.
Yeah.
And I feel like you mature so quickly compared to other people because you're
Yeah. Yeah.
forced to,
Yeah. You're forced
that
to.
like
Yeah.
you're just like always on a different wavelength.
Yeah, I think that happens with like people who go through like lot of difficult experiences. I think like chronic illness is a similar kind of like it's traumatic, right? A lot of it is
It
very
is.
traumatic. And I think whenever a person like experiences trauma, there are always two things. Like they get mature and they have PTSD. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what happens to us also. Like we grow through this experience, but like there's trauma associated with that experience also, and it's not like it disappears just because our illness has like it's like more in control or like we are much better than we were. That trauma hasn't gone away. It's like still there. It like
Mhm.
sometimes it like even right like like I was in a very worse condition in 2016 and 17, and right now when sometimes I imagine like if I'd be able to go through all of that again, and it scares me
Mhm.
sometimes. Like I don't
Yeah.
know how I can survive that nightmare, like again it literally like scares me. And like yeah, I think we are very like at in like in one way we are forced to grow. And I and we have to carry this burden along with us also. Like
Mhm.
every like it's it's not like easily resolvable, like without any kind of mental health support. Like I don't think if
Mhm.
a person has a long term chronic illness and they have suffered a lot, it's like they get better and it just goes away. It's not, I don't think it's going to happen without any like mental health support from like either a doctor or family or friends. Like they need some kind of mental health support.
Mhm. I think, the thing which is really hard for other people to digest is that people who have chronic health conditions, they're always going to have mental health struggles because as long as you have that physical condition, the mental struggles comes with it. It's not like, okay, I feel I'm going through a difficult time. I get therapy and then I'm never going to have it again, but I'm going to have my physical illness. It's like, it's a constant battle between trying to look after your physical health, trying to look after your mental health, trying to act like a normal person, do everything you want to do, um, and deal with the fact that people don't know, people don't understand. It's like, I think fatigue is one thing, but when you feel drained because you have to, it's not like you're not pretending to be anything,
Hmm.
but you can't, like, I can't just suddenly like be like, oh, I'm in so much pain and just complain because I'm not going to get anywhere in life
Yeah.
if I just stop and complain. Um, so it is like kind of like running on a treadmill which never stops.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't have the option to get off.
Yeah, and yeah, even if you complain, like you can complain one day, 2 days, like how many more days are you going?
Not every day.
Yeah, even like even if it is very severe, like okay, even if it is very severe, I think like the people around you, like they are going to get tired of it, because like caregiving is also like very stressful. So,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
at one point, it gets stressful for everybody, like including you and the people, and I think even for the doctors. Like if somebody has a chronic illness that's not resolving, I think that
Mhm.
will give stress to them also. And I used to talk about like how do you live with a problem that has no solution. It has no solution, right? But like you can't run
Mhm.
away from the problem. Like the problem is still there. You can't run away from it. So like in engineering, we find like approximate solutions. So I think that's what we are doing. We are just like living an approximation to the life that we wanted to live. And yeah, we are cutting corners here and there, and we don't have a perfect solution, but we are just like living something thing that can be approximately called like normal life.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think first thing you have to do is drop all expectations,
yeah,
any like previous plans, because you're just gonna get disappointed. And I think the hardest thing is accepting. And like for me, it was I remained in denial for ages because when you're like 13, 14, you're like everyone's telling you, oh, it's just a growing phase, you'll grow out of it, it's fine. Then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna grow out of it. Like, what's the problem? So it's like you're in denial. And realistically, when especially when doctors are like, you don't want the label of this, you think you're gonna struggle to get a job because of what condition you have, yeah, you're in denial. And then, like you said, it's a full-time job for everyone else as well, because people want to be there. But when a problem has no solution, people get frustrated. It's like we get frustrated, they get frustrated. Um, but then that makes you feel so guilty.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You feel like a burden, you feel like a problem. Even though you're suffering the most, you feel responsible for everything.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, when like there's no solution, like I think that's where desperation comes in. Like you want it to be over because like you see everybody around you is like frustrated and you have that guilt that because of me like all this is happening. Especially I think when we are young, and
Mhm.
I think like we can't understand that thing. Like it's not our fault. Like nobody's like I think it's not told to us enough that it's not your
Mhm.
fault. Like it's not your fault that you got this condition. And yeah, we feel like such a burden that we start like devaluing ourselves, dehumanizing ourselves. And yeah, I think that like starts like if we get into the pattern of thinking, I think like I was in that pattern of thinking for a like a long period of time. Like, and I just didn't value myself. I just used to think like, okay, if I die or like just something worse happens to me, then like all of this will be over. And even though like
Mhm.
my loved ones will miss me, they will like miss me for a certain period of time, and then life will go back to normal. At least like it will be
Mhm.
resolved. Like they don't have to suffer, like they don't have to go through this every single day, like they are going now. So that guilt and that like it used to drive me to think about all these things like suicidal thoughts and everything, because like I just wanted to end for myself also and for the people around me also.
Mhm. Yeah, I think people are uncomfortable with talking about like suicide ideation for people who have chronic illness, because no one wants to think and no one wants to talk about it. It's uncomfortable,
Yeah,
right? But like the thing is, we have to talk about it because if you have something which you know is never going to end till you die, who would who would
yeah,
choose?
yeah,
Like no one would choose it, right?
yeah,
So like obviously there's that thing. And on top of that, you feel like there's no solution to this. The only approximate solution
yeah,
is if you're just not there, because then if you're not there, then the problem doesn't exist, right?
yeah,
Um, and I think yeah, like you said, it's really hard as a kid because not as a kid, but like when you're younger, because you have I think you feel like other people have expectations that you're
yeah,
just going to
yeah,
snap out of it, you're going to be fine. And no one, like, yeah, I think it's just really difficult because you want to be someone else, like you want to be different. But then other people, like your parents, your family, you think they want you to be different.
mhm,
And then you're surrounded by young people who are different.
yeah,
So it's just, yeah, it's just really, really difficult. And like no one talks about how it affects you mentally. But I think like you said, you can get used to the physical symptoms and you can kind of bear them, but it's the mental impact which I think is the worst.
yeah. And like you said, na, where the problem is not going to like a problem isn't going to end until you die. So I think like there's a rational argument that you begin to give yourself, that
Yeah, it's
like suicide
rational.
and death is an option for yourself, because like it feels rational, it feels logical. Like if this isn't going to stop until I die, and if I'm going to stay like this until I die, then what's the use? Like
Hmm.
that, I think that's like we fall into a trap. Like it suddenly becomes like a logical argument, a rational argument. Like it, like you don't understand it, it's because of the condition that you're thinking like this. Like, and nobody around us is like going to tell us. And even we don't, not everyone has that outlet. Or like I don't think like when, that's why I think like whenever someone is diagnosed with chronic illness, like they need mental health support like from then and there, from the moment of diagnosis, because like you
Yeah.
don't know what the person is thinking. Like as a doctor, I think like you don't know what the patient is thinking mentally, because that's what happens
Mhm.
with normal people also, right? People say that okay,
Yeah.
that person is behaving normally and suddenly he jumped off a bridge or something. So because you don't know what the person is thinking internally, and we become so adept at creating this false image that like we are okay with, because we don't want to present our I'm in a meeting, I don't, oh my back is hurting, or like I can't behave like that in
Yeah.
a meeting, right? Like I have to behave like everybody else, I have to smile, I have to do everything. So that is difficult. So you never know what someone else is, and especially someone with a chronic illness who's going through a very hard time, how are they feeling internally? I think you need to ask them, you need to understand them. And
Mhm.
yeah, so the mental health part of it is very, like very important since the day. I think like any, like even if you're undiagnosed, like after a month or 2 months of like constant symptoms, it like becomes like a huge, it you start degrading mentally. And I think from that
Mhm.
moment itself, like there should be, this should be in the healthcare system, that those patients also need mental health support, because like they
Mhm.
are going through something. Like if you were broke for like 2 3 months, you didn't have a place to live, you'd be stressed, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So and if you are sick like for 3 months 2 months, and like you are not able to figure it out, and whenever we get this feeling like the world is moving on, like I always get this, the world is moving on and I'm just like stagnant, like my world has
Mhm.
stopped, and everybody else around us is like moving ahead of me, or like I'll always be like this 5 steps behind them. And so yeah, I think like that those feelings are always there, and anybody like who's going through like few months of illness, I think they should receive this mental health support from that moment itself.
I mean, I feel like nowadays that our generation understands that you don't have to have a problem to suffer from mental health issues. You could sometimes the people which unfortunately have like committed suicide are people which really successful, really rich, have a family.
Yeah,
They seem like they have everything. So if we are understanding that you don't have to have a reason, imagine people who do have a
yeah,
reason. It's kind of logical to think that they're more likely to think that, like
yeah,
feel that. And I mean, I saw this post on Instagram this morning, and it says people living with chronic illnesses are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide, and chronic conditions contribute to up to 70% of suicides. And I mean, those numbers talk for themselves.
yeah,
And like you said about like feeling like your steps, the steps behind. Sometimes I always explain to my family like it feels like I'm running a race, but I'm that person who's like a whole lap behind
yeah,
and I'm really, really slow. And I have no option but to carry on running the marathon because if I stop, then I'm never going to complete it. But I'm like ridiculously far behind. Um, and yeah, I think, when people say like, I don't know, like it gets better, like, how is it going to get better?
yeah,
And it's just like people don't understand as well that like we try our best to not feel low mentally. We try our best to just be happy with our physical condition. But everyone has a limit. Like you can only
yeah,
be so optimistic. So it's not like we don't try. Of course we try. Who wants to live like this? Of
yeah,
course we try. But it's not as easy as it seems.
yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say, but like yeah,
So sorry.
I was yeah, literally forgot what I was going to say. Uh, uh, on the topic of like suicide, like I know people, like there was one kid, like he was a teenager and he committed suicide because like he didn't feel supported in his home, and because of this thing only, like he felt like he was behind his peers and everything, and he had a chronic illness. And even I tried to like take my life a few times, and like I was a person like when before that experience, I was a person like I didn't use I used to think that okay, like I would never be in that in a situation that I would think of committing suicide. But like in
Mhm.
that moment, like it felt like death seemed like the only explanation, only option for me. Like this is the only exit, like this is the only best option. And yeah, like I've been trained to think analytically, like logic, science, and everything, but still, like I went into the spiral of thinking that okay, like in that moment it all feels logical, it all feels like scientific and rational, that okay, this is the only
Mhm.
explanation, this is the only choice you have. But yeah, I think like even thrice is likely, I think that should be much higher, I think. Yeah, I think even like it should be much higher, because like people with chronic illnesses, especially when they are not supported, I think they're really, really prone to depression. I think depression and anxiety is like, like
A given.
common. Yeah, it's given. Just like
Yeah.
assume they have depression and anxiety. And yeah, what I was going to say was I forgot again. What did I forgot again? As this thing, I'll come back to it later. I forgot
Okay.
what I was going to say. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let me just think as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
what were you
no.
saying earlier? What were you saying earlier? Just remind me. Like after suicide, what did you say?
I don't know. Maybe it'll
About the
come back.
place and all those things, right? Yeah, I was
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say something. I'll come back to it later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, it's a given. Like, I feel like also people don't understand that we can have these times where we maybe try to attempt suicide or self-harm, and then we're in a better place. But there's such a fine line
yeah,
between getting back into that place. It's literally like right next door. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
sometimes it's one bad flare up
yeah,
or one bad day, one bad like hour,
yeah,
and it's like you're in the same place
yeah,
again.
yeah,
So it's like a constant like I don't know, it's like really, really like
yeah, yeah,
close.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like
yeah.
when I was in chronic pain, like like had chronic pain for like 2, 3 years, and I remember like I had forgotten how to breathe. Like I used to inhale
Mhm.
and then just like keep the air in. I don't know, like I had to
Mhm.
remind myself that okay, Nikhil, you have to exhale. And like I used to
Mhm.
breathe, even now I breathe like that sometimes. Like whenever I'm stressed, like I forget how to breathe normally. Like
Mhm.
so, like you said, it's literally like it's a very thin line to like walk. And like I tried to do a job in that condition because like I wanted my mind not to wander, like not to go
Mhm.
into that, like because that's like yeah, one bad hour, one bad flare, one bad pain, and like you are in that place where you think like okay, like it's no use. And in chronic illness the cycle keeps happening, right? You get better and
Yeah.
then you get worse, you get better and then you get worse. So like this cycle is also like it's full of despair, and like it's like somebody keeps like they're pulling you up and then pushing you down more further.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like no, get back
Yeah.
up now again.
I mean, it's the thing is, it's not just like the impact of like a bad flare or like a bad day or a bad hour. It's also all the external things. So like at least okay, the pain isn't in your control and you expect it. But like an argument with someone, a
Yeah,
breakup,
yeah,
a family problem, like something or even something really small like I don't know, like dropping something or like
yeah,
breaking something,
yeah, yeah,
it can just tip you over the edge. And the thing is like you can't be in control in how other people act with you and how other people treat you and how other people make decisions which will affect you. But no one stops and thinks, how is this going to affect someone who's literally walking on that fine line?
yeah,
Um, and I think, yeah, it's like you can't expect anyone to prioritize you because everyone's going to prioritize themselves.
yeah, yeah,
But it's like you could, like, one thing you say or one decision you make could save me from thinking I want to die
yeah.
one day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just remember what I was going to say. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
like I was going to say that, like because of all these experiences, you said like we grew up earlier. I think it's because of all this. Like
Mhm.
this, like chronic illness will give you I think like if you sit and I think everyone does that. I think yeah. Like what else are we going to do? Like when you are alone, when you just think and like just think about all these things, like it gives you a lot of perspective, like on like what is important, like you said, like from money to like being happy. So like what is really important to you, and even like in life in general, right?
Mhm.
Like even when we like even when I see somebody being inconsiderate to someone else, then I get angry. Like I
Yeah,
lecture
same.
them that like you literally don't know that. Okay, like normal people won't think of possibilities that we are able to think of.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this might be a possibility, that there might be a possibility that this person is going through something like that. Okay, that's why you have to be considerate, that's why you have to be kind, that's why you have to be a little less judgmental and little more accommodating, just.
Hmm.
And yeah, like breaking off a thing, like small things can, like it can lead to something worse, and especially if you know that someone is living with a chronic illness, I think that's like, you know it's not like you have to be super careful. Okay, so that's what we are trying to figure out here, and like tell to people that, okay, if you are interacting with a chronic illness, there are certain things that you should be you should be aware of, and certain, like whatever goes on in our lives, and what we want from people, and it's not like we want a lot.
It's really not. It's
Yeah,
just like nothing extra, which is negative. That's all
yeah.
it is. Is like you
Yeah,
don't have to do anything.
it's like if you are going through a bad, if like you are sad, you don't want somebody to come and say something that makes you more sad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's like I mean, I feel like you said, like it gives us a different perspective. So in situations, we see different possibilities that other people don't see. And I think for me, it's so frustrating because like the reason I started championing youth mind was because my friends around me were dealing with like depressive thoughts, suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And I would say to them, like, don't give up, like don't isolate yourself, don't break up relationships, don't break up friendships, don't think that like the only way is to focus just on
yeah,
university or like people. I mean, I feel like other people say like um I don't want a relationship. I don't want friendships. I just want to focus on education and that stuff for later, which is a normal way of thinking. But for us, we have the possibility of, okay, what if I can't do that later? What if, things change? So yeah, for me, it's always like I try and give advice, but I think my advice just seems irrational because other people can't understand that
yeah.
perspective. But I think to anyone watching this, if someone with chronic illness gives you advice, they're giving you the right advice. Just take
Yeah, yeah, I think,
it.
yeah, if like, yeah, like, uh, yeah, you are right. Like, if someone the chronicle is like giving you advice, I think like it's because like even if it's a kid or like somebody young, I think like they have a lot of perspective and experience behind it. And but yeah, it's not just like we are not only just for advice also. Not just for
Yeah.
like, it's like, one of my friends, like, yeah, like he used to ask me like, what did you learn? So at like, I have things to say to him, but then at like I also want to say that like there's a lot of things I haven't figured out. Like like it's a mess. Like, okay, I've learned a few things, and like if you're in some situation, I will give you like some advice, but it's not like I've figured out everything. And yeah, it like so much like with the chronic illness, like going through hospitals and navigating, like it affects every part of your life, and you see every sphere of your life, and you get into the circumstances, and you have to find solutions to these problems, right? You can't run away from them. You have to find solutions to many different kind of problems, like seeing a different doctor or like managing your expenses, everything that normal people have to do. And on top of that, you have to manage your body, and everything you have to try to like stay at your best. And so yeah, I think like we gain like some perspectives that people miss, and then yeah, we are able to think in some directions that people who haven't had those experiences, they are not able to uh, think in that direction. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like um I feel like it makes you perceive every situation very differently as well. Like for me, when someone's acting disrespectful to me, I've learned this thing of just being compassionate towards them and empathetic. They might be going through something which is a tough time, like when I was dealing with stuff, whatever. Um, and I feel like, I don't know, this might be me personally, but I feel like we don't get appreciated enough
hmm.
because we, you know, it's it's like friendship, right? Like you expect a friend to be there for you, support you, etc., etc. And it's like sometimes we go above and beyond because we are very empathetic, compassionate, loving people, caring people, that sometimes we do extra.
Yeah,
And it's like people don't understand that we're dealing with everything they're dealing with our condition mentally, physically. But on top of that, we keep giving as well. And I feel like people are quite like narrow minded and they don't stop and think, okay, this person's giving me this and doing this whilst dealing with so much else. And sometimes, I don't know, I feel like there's some situations where people need to stop and think and look at someone with a chronic illness and think, I should maybe appreciate what they're doing, not because of what they're doing, but the fact they're doing it despite everything they're dealing with.
yeah. I think that applies to like people and like the society in general also. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like that's I think like what we're going to discuss in future. Like, we deserve, like, let's say you're a chronic ill student. You are studying despite your chronic illness, like in spite of that,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it takes a lot of strength and courage to do that, like to go into a full-time program and like do everything that like it's not like you are skipping on homeworks or something. Like, you are giving you are doing the homeworks,
Exactly.
you are giving the exams, you are doing everything that they are doing. But yeah, I think the system and like people need to appreciate that, despite all this difficulty, these people are trying their best to keep up with ourselves. So the best we can do is like to give them a little support and like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it doesn't make the situation unfair. Like, it doesn't make it easy for us. Like, it's not easy if you give
It
us a
doesn't.
little accommodation, because like every day we are trying to stay alive, trying to keep ourselves sane. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that every day I'm trying to keep myself sane. And yeah, like sometimes like I imagine myself screaming. Like, I would scream, but I imagine myself screaming. Like, I'm just trying to withhold, like, just trying not to scream. So I just imagine that I'm screaming. Every day, like, we are trying to stay sane. So I think that those things, like, uh yeah, I think we deserve some amount of consideration and support. And uh yeah, like, especially mental health support. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think like um the most important thing is just to know that someone with a chronic illness, every day they're just trying to survive and they're just trying
yeah,
to want to stay alive,
yeah,
and want and get through their symptoms. And this is where people need to put themselves, try to understand that you may not, you may wake up and think, I'm going to work really hard, I'm going to get that top grade, or I'm going to go to work and I'm going to work overtime or something like that. But for us, the most basic thing is just getting through the day and staying alive and wanting to stay alive.
yeah. So, like, that's why we started this, right? Like, when we discuss, like, we want to tell all these things to people, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I want, like, I want you to, like, just tell people that, like, what we have planned and like what we are thinking of discussing. So I think like you should do that.
Yeah. Yes. Today was just kind of like a basic,
Yeah,
like
like we are just
defining chronic illness.
exploring the impact of chronic illness on mental health. And like, all, like, it has a lot of, like, I don't know, many dimensions. Like, you can, I think like you can have an endless discussion. Like, everybody is going to have a different perspective. Like, every chronically ill person will have, and like, it will show you something like that you never thought of. But I
Mhm.
think I think like that's important, because even like in learning, like, if you are learning something, when you learn it from different perspective, it like gives you a deeper understanding of something. Like, if somebody's
Mhm.
like, let's, for any subject, like, right, like maths or science or whatever, like, if you're learning something and you don't understand it, sometimes there's a different perspective, a different way of, like, somebody tells it to you in a different way, and you suddenly understand it, suddenly it all makes sense. So I think, yeah, like we have a lot of different perspectives, and that's what, like, that's why we are doing this, right, to make people understand, like it's difficult for people. So that's why, like, we are trying to
Yeah.
like help them understand what we are going through. And like I think it's like to and fro thing. Like people have to like we are also trying to understand people. People are also trying to like, and I think we are
Mhm.
helping. Like we want to help people to to better understand what we go through, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, I mean, like at least we've said what we want to say, and depending on, it's up to people then if they want to be considerate about it or not. And that's the most we can do because I feel like this conversation could go on for like hours. So we have to like, we had a hard time thinking of topics. So yeah, next time's going to be like about educational adjustments and how hard that is, especially at a young age. And then, yeah, we want to talk about stigma, especially in Indian society. And I think we can think of many topics afterwards as well.
Yeah, yeah. Today I think we talked like, yeah, I think like these things about, like self-harm, suicide, like we didn't think about this like
We did
yeah.
it.
But like yeah, every time you talk about like it's like that's what I think like sometimes like I remember and like suddenly something comes to my mind like okay, I felt that also, like I felt this also. And like now, when you go back and think it's sometimes like yeah, I get scared like how will I deal with that again? Like I get scared like will I be able to deal with it again, like I'm still I feel like personally I'm still like like a part of me is still in denial, like a part of me still like
Mm,
wants to do everything like what I wanted to do in the way that I wanted to do. Like a part of me still doesn't want to accept my limitations and find a different way. But
mm,
yeah, like that's why like I'm always scared, okay, like we are getting older, how will we go through it all? And yeah, like every time I think of it, like there's something new that comes. And yeah, like there are so many things attached to chronic illness that affect our mental health, like our personal life, our like school career, like social life, and like our own thoughts, like small experiences that these all affect our mental health. In like it's not like okay, like school affects the most or career affects like everything affects you like almost equally. Like
yeah.
everything plays like an almost equal part. Like you don't know, like if you get like if you have homework that you can't deal with, that's also a big stressor. And if you are like somebody said something, that also a big stressor. Like it affects you equally. It's not like something like you can deal with this, okay, I can't deal with that kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
we are struggling so much in our daily lives that the minutest of things can have a big impact. And yeah, I think we are trying to figure out what those minute things can be apart from the big things.
Everything.
Yeah, because like everybody talks about education and like social stigma and all those things, but I think we are also trying to figure out what other small that people don't talk about, right? Even something like a symptom, like a symptom that's so
Yeah.
private to you, and like it affects your body in such a way that you don't feel like talking about it, or people don't talk about it. And like you said, like this suicide thing, and like yeah, there are lots of things that affect us mentally. And I think all of them deserve like an equal amount of space for exploration and for talking, because you never know, like it might be possible that someone has all things sorted, like okay, like they're not dealing with like school stress or something stress or like some other kind of stress, but they're dealing with some, like let's say like a like fistula in like their vaginal region or something, and like people don't talk
Hmm.
about it, like reproductive
Yeah.
health or something that's affecting the reproductive, the people don't talk about it. But and that is causing them depression, that is causing them anxiety, and like uh, like they are getting like yeah, suicidal thoughts and everything. So I think yeah, we are trying our best to explore those things also,
Mm.
along with things like accommodations and like how people in society perceive us and what people say. And I think like at the end, like I don't know how much of it will be really possible, but I think uh like at the end, I hope that like people will be able to figure out, okay, that like these things can be triggers, and then
Mm.
like how to support someone with a chronic illness. And I think like to anyone who's not who doesn't have a chronic illness and who's watching this, like I promise you it's not a lot. Like Anyone
It's
who's
so
listening to this,
basic
yeah,
compared to like
yeah,
what we're talking about. Compared to all the symptoms we're saying we have, it's
yeah,
literally like
yeah, yeah,
tiny.
yeah. It's very basic that like that we are promised. Like, because yeah, I think that's necessary to tell people that it's not a lot. I think because we know that, right? Because like we have been around
Mhm,
other people, and I think we also have had the transition, right, from being normal person to a chronically ill person. So I think we also understand that it's not a lot. Like it's just very basic, minute things.
mhm. Yeah, for sure.
So Tanya, before we end, like, would you like to say something else?
Um,
Like just.
I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, this is a conversation I could go on forever
Yeah,
about, and I think you could too.
yeah,
But to anyone listening to this, I think the main thing is just acknowledge that it's there. And we've said already that you're never going to understand it fully. And we really don't expect much
mm,
from people. Because we know that we can't expect much from ourselves, that we don't expect much from other people. But it's just basic things like don't be rude, don't be annoying, just don't make things any harder than they already are.
yeah,
And I think, sometimes people come to us for advice because we're empathetic, compassionate and stuff, or people have problems and maybe their solutions affect us negatively. If you are in that position where something you're doing, saying, or an action you're taking may affect someone negatively with a chronic illness, stop and figure out how maybe you could work on that yourself. So you're not, I don't, it sounds like selfish, but for someone like me who does deal with so much, it would make my life a lot easier if people just took a step back and thought
yeah.
once or twice.
And I think like yeah, you said like it sounds selfish, but like I'd like to give an argument that like, many people are living with chronic illnesses, and many more people are living with conditions that have an equal amount of impact on mental health as do chronic illnesses. So like
Yeah.
it's for like the betterment of everyone if people understood how to approach people who go through a lot of trauma with sensitivity, right? It will help
Hmm.
everyone. It's not like there's a small section of people who are going through these things and they are asking for something. We are going through chronic illnesses, somebody else might be going through domestic violence, somebody else might be going through a lot of financial stress, like chronic, like poverty or something like that, and all these things have a lot of like a huge impact on mental health. And I think like at the end of it all, like uh, if somebody is living in conditions that is like it impacts their mental health heavily, then how do you talk to them with sensitivity and with consideration and with compassion? I think that's what like we want, that's what we want from people, like that's the only thing that we want,
Hmm.
and that's what like we hope that we can convey, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't even want people to ask me.
Yeah,
You don't even have to help someone else.
yeah,
All you can do is stop and look at yourself and think, I'm grateful for being healthy. I'm grateful for not feeling suicidal. I'm grateful
yeah,
for not having these worries. It's like you're developing yourself as an individual if you just be grateful for the things that like everyone says to us, you're more mature and considerate if you look at poor people and you feel grateful. Yeah. So
yeah,
look at people who maybe have ill health and kind of be grateful. It's
yeah, yeah,
very, very simple thing.
yeah. I think like this will be like a perspective lesson for other people, like yeah, it will give them some like different perspective, like which can help them, like you rightly said, just think about themselves that okay, I'm not in this condition as these people, so like I have to grateful for this, and like no yeah, I think like you said it best. uh yeah, so I do you want to end?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, yeah, we have no intention through this series of like pinpointing any criticism or
mm,
anything. It's just about if we don't use our voice, we can't expect people to try to understand.
yeah,
So the whole point of this is to share our experiences, voice what we need and what we wish we had. And hopefully that I know there are people who are going to try and understand and going to be empathetic and things. Um, and nothing we say is like a normal people versus chronic people. like ill people. We're all the same. It's just some of
Yeah,
us go through different things. So it's no like us versus them. It's not we're not isolating ourselves. We're
yeah,
trying to integrate ourselves
yeah,
in.
yeah.
So yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I wanted to
I
say.
think, yeah, you said it right that like we're trying to create a more inclusive environment for us
Hmm.
rather than, like demanding something that makes us different from the general population. So yeah, I hope uh, like we have made our intentions clear. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think we have to speak up, because if we don't speak up, like there will be like, people will suffer from it again and again, and this will keep on continuing. And yeah, like with every, like much of other subjects, like it will turn into a taboo and a stigma that, like mental health and everything, like, and taboos and stigmas are not good for anyone, like not for the
Mhm.
people suffering from them, not from the people living with people suffering from them. And it's, yeah, I think that's why we want to speak up, that's why we want to explore all these things. And it's not like we are experts, and like we are just sharing our experiences,
Yeah.
perspectives, and we hope that it will be useful to everyone. And yeah, through this we want to like elevate the voices, like because not everybody can speak up, also not everybody is in that position also. So we hope that,
Mhm.
like somebody listening to this or watching this might relate also. And yeah, we will try our best to like voice all concerns or all that we have learned, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good point to end, Tanya. So yeah, thank you so much for like collaborating with us and
No,
agreeing
thank
with
you.
us to talk about all these things. And yeah, I think like I think like it's like it might sound weird, but yeah, yeah, like I enjoy these talks, right? Yeah,
So
yeah,
right,
yeah,
it's something you're passionate about,
yeah.
and you don't want other people to go through the same
Yeah,
thing you
yeah,
dealt with.
exactly,
So
exactly. And I
yeah.
think like this sometimes it's funny also. Like I don't know, like sometimes it's humorous also. Like just to talk about these things and like right, like sometimes it feels funny that okay, nobody has ever talked about this. Like this is so
Mhm.
regular, but like nobody talks about this. And I think yeah, like we learn so much that like we can go on talking about this like for on or like hours on and on. So, but yeah, we won't do that now.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we could carry on.
So
Yeah,
have a
but
good day, Tanya. I know you
thank
are
you.
tired, so I'll
Thank
also
you.
end this. So yeah, thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for talking to us, and we'll see you next week, right? And please like let
Yeah.
us know when you like have it on your podcast. And like to everyone watching
Mm.
this, yeah, like if you have friends who couldn't watch this, just send them to Tanya's podcast, and all of this conversation will be uploaded there later. And we will see you in 2 weeks. And our plan is to have one conversation every 2 weeks. So
Two
yeah, with
weeks? I thought it was next week.
huh? Oh
Thought
yeah,
it
it's
was
next
next
week,
week.
right? Yeah, my, my memory is like failing me. Yeah, it's next week. Yeah, right. It's next week.
It's on the
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
23rd.
Yeah, it's next week. Yeah. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Will this be recorded and posted on your Facebook as
Yeah,
well?
yeah. No, it will be like automatically be posted. Like after the live is ending, it will be posted there,
Mhm.
and like everyone can see it.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay.
Yeah.
See you later. Then
Yeah.
see you next week.
Okay.
Hope I don't
See
forget.
ya.
Yeah, yeah. Bye.
Bye.